In the MacPractice Ledger, under the Other menu, we have the options of positive and negative adjustments. Adjustments are a way to basically adjust a patient's ledger without affecting your production or your financial reports. A negative adjustment will subtract from the patient's balance that they owe. A positive adjustment will add to or increase the balance that the patient owes. Let's talk about some examples of when we would want to use either one of these options. A negative adjustment acts a little bit like a payment or a write-off. We would use this for things such as a discount or any other reason that you would want to decrease the patient's balance. If you're wanting to charge something at a discounted rate, rather than going into that fee and changing the unit fee here, an adjustment is a better way to document why that discount was taking place. So we will go up to the Other menu and choose New Negative Adjustment. As you can see, the resulting screen looks a lot like a payment window. This is because we are adjusting the ledger and taking this balance off of the ledger. Let's say that I want to discount this charge, and I'm going to give the patient a $40 discount. It's always a good idea to put in an adjustment type. Reason being, months, years down the road, if you're audited or if you're wondering where did this money go, why weren't we paid this money, you'll be able to look at your adjustment and actually have a reason or a type here. I've often seen things used such as professional courtesy, family discount, friend of doctor, whatever the reason is that we're taking this money off of that charge. Once you have the amount and the type or reason for the adjustment, we'll go ahead and choose our fee that we're going to apply this discount or adjustment to. Once selected, I can click on Apply to Selection, and now I have a $40 discount on this charge. I'll go ahead and click Save. And as you can see, that took the patient's account balance down, and now we have our negative adjustment down here. A positive adjustment is going to be adding to the patient's balance. So anything that you want to charge the patient, but that is not a procedure or a fee in your fee schedule that you would normally charge. Some good examples of this are a missed appointment fee, or in your office, if you maybe charge a fee for a patient being late to an appointment 3 times. Whatever the case may be, wherever we need to adjust this ledger and add to the patient's balance. In order to do this, you do have to select a charge first to tie the positive adjustment to. Because of this, many offices will create a dummy charge in their fee schedule, something like 000 for a missed appointment fee, and then just set that charge to $0. Then they can always select that fee before choosing positive adjustment. If you have a fee in here that you can use, that's another way of doing this as well. So go ahead and select your charge first, then go up to the Other menu and choose a new positive adjustment. We'll put the amount in here and the type or reason for the adjustment. Positive adjustments even allow for a longer description. Now I have my positive adjustment, and as you can see, the patient's balance was increased by $20. If you ever need to take a look at some more detail on either of these adjustments, like anything in the ledger, you can highlight that line item and you can double click to see that information. With positive and negative adjustments, it's often a good idea to add a comment for further explanation. You may not need to with a positive adjustment because you do have that area for the longer description. But often with a negative adjustment, you may wish to highlight that negative adjustment and go to the other menu and choose New Comment. This will allow you to give a longer, more detailed explanation of why this money was taken off the patient's account. As you can see, this discount explanation will now be tied to our negative adjustment. Now let's talk about advanced navigation. For those of you who attended the beginning ledger classes, you may remember when we talked briefly about the View Options menu. For everyone using MagPractice, and especially for new users, I always recommend hiding the clinical ledger. If the clinical ledger is shown, as you can see, that can greatly lengthen our ledger. We'll have every single appointment documented, all of our attachments, clinical notes, EHR or EMR forms will be listed on here as transactions in the ledger. This is what the clinical tab in MagPractice is for, giving you that summary and those quick links to all the other areas of MagPractice. We don't need to show that clinical information in the ledger. So I always recommend having this unchecked so that we are keeping the ledger to financial transactions only. Now, once you are used to the MagPractice ledger, you can also use this View Options menu for some advanced navigation. Currently, we are showing the financial ledger, and we are showing all transactions and account statements. You can limit the ledger to show only open charges, outstanding claims, paid charges, related transactions, unapplied payments, and today's transactions. So for instance, if I want to see all open charges, meaning any charge that still is contributing to the balance and has not been paid off, I can select open charges. As you can see, this will limit my ledger to all of these charges that have not yet been paid on. I can also choose to show all outstanding claims. Any claim that is not set to paid closed will show on this list. I can also show paid charges. This will be the opposite of the open charges option and will show me any charge that has already been paid off. I'm going to skip related transactions for now and come back to it. Unapplied payments will show us any of those payments in red that are contributing to this unapplied balance down here. Remember that in MagPractice, unapplied simply means credit. So this patient has a payment, a check payment, that has not been applied toward any of their active balance. So it's not working to pay off this balance that they have. It's simply sitting there as a credit to be used. This may be a good way to check and see if you have unapplied payments for this patient. And once we found one, we can simply double click on it and apply it towards these charges. Now, as you can see, the patient's balance is greatly reduced and we no longer have that credit sitting on the account. And then, of course, today's transactions, which is pretty self-explanatory. This will limit the ledger to everything that was posted today. Now let's talk about related transactions. As you're looking through your ledger, let's say as we looked through our view options and we noticed those claims that had not been closed. And I'm really wondering why this claim is still open. I thought it was paid. One thing that we can do is choose to show related transactions. You'll first want to highlight something that you're questioning in the ledger. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight my electronic claim. Then I'll go up to View Options and Show Related Transactions. Once I show related transactions, it will show me everything that is related to this electronic claim. As you can see, all of the charges listed here went out on this claim, and this insurance payment came in for this claim as well. Now I can do some more investigating, see that it was completely paid off. I forgot to put my $0 in here though, and that's probably why the claim didn't close. I'll go ahead and hit save, and now the claim has been moved to paid closed. Once I'm done working through these items, always remember to go back to show all transactions. It's very common to get confused with the View Options menu when you first start using it to navigate the ledger in this way. I've seen offices switch to a certain view, move on in their day-to-day work, and then wonder why they can't see much of their ledger. They get scared that somehow things were accidentally deleted. This is not the case. You should probably just check your View Options menu and make sure that you're showing all of those transactions when you're done looking at the ledger in this way. So again, by default, when you're just looking at everything on the ledger, you should have Show Financial Ledger, Show All Transactions, and probably Account Statement as well if you're wanting to see when those account statements were printed for your patient. Something else that will help you as you navigate the ledger is, of course, making sure that all of those columns that you need to see with the most important information are brought forward. Status is a column that isn't brought forward by default, but may be a good idea to bring it to the front of the ledger so that you can see the status of your claims. If you scroll over to the right, you can see all the different columns MapPractice offers for the ledger. Another one that I like to pull forward is the procedure date, because this is the date that you can choose. So especially if you are often changing the date on your transactions to reflect the real date that the transaction was completed, you will want to make sure that you have that procedure date column up at the front. Now let's talk about cleanup. If you're looking at this example ledger right now and you're thinking that your patient's ledgers in your office are about 10 times this length, this may be a section of the mini class that you want to pay attention to. The first thing to do when you're needing to clean up or make sense of an old ledger that has a lot of work in it, or that needs to be added to, or that isn't complete, very first thing that you should do is call support. Every ledger and every office and every situation is different. So you may need to do something extremely different than someone else would for getting your ledger cleaned up. So our support staff is trained in the ledger and in helping offices with those issues. So please do give them a call and see what they can do and how they can direct you. Now, oftentimes you may find that you need to add in old charges or old payments. Perhaps you have a stack of papers that you haven't quite gotten into the system yet. Um, if you're starting from scratch, obviously you can put in an old balance moving from paper or moving from another system as a balance forward charge. But if you've been using MacPractice for a while and you've simply gotten behind on the work, or you entered in some payments and not others, and you're trying to go back and make sure you have those accurate records, it's definitely a good idea to do so. One thing I would recommend for you in that case is checking your preferences. And in the ledger preferences, under general, the very first option here is sort ledger transactions by. I would recommend switching this to procedure date. Because you're going to be posting a lot of charges and a lot of payments and backdating them to the day that um, the procedure actually took place, the date of service, or the day that you actually received the payment, or the date on the check. You're going to be backdating a lot of those things as you do this catch-up work. Therefore, I would recommend sorting the ledger by that procedure date. So instead of seeing the ledger in the order that you posted things, you'll see the ledger in the real order in which things took place. So definitely enable this preference to start with. You may find that you need to do a little bit of cleanup as far as claims goes. Maybe you have quite a few outstanding claims. There are some reports for insurance, and there's also the claims manager in your manager's ability that can help a lot with this. If you go to the claims manager and run the outstanding claims report, you can put in a specific date range. You can run this report for certain insurance companies, and you can check and see what claims you have that are outstanding. If you are running this manager or a similar report to see your outstanding claims, I of course recommend starting with the most recent claims. A lot of insurance companies have a timely filing limit, so after a certain amount of time, it's too late to resubmit those claims and get paid for them. And that's why I recommend, just looking for the most recent claims first. So, for instance, I might run my outstanding claims manager for this year so far only, and deal with these claims first before going back to 2015. Remember that within a patient's ledger, we can always go to our View Options menu to help us with this cleanup. So, if on a patient-specific level, we can, of course, see our outstanding claims, just like we talked about earlier. Some claims you may want to resubmit those. The outstanding claims manager will help with that. Once you hit apply and run this manager, you can check all these claims and reprint the selected claims. For e-claims, you will have to go to the e-claims ability to rebuild and resend those claims. For further information about the e-claims ability and how to do some cleanup in that area, please call support and ask for our EDI department. Some claims may be too old to resubmit. In that case, or to submit for the first time. In that case, if you have charges in here that are ancient and that never got submitted to insurance, and you know insurance is not going to pay on those charges, you may just need to write off that balance, that amount. And the way to do so is through what we learned today in the other menu, doing a negative adjustment. You can adjust that balance off the ledger that you know insurance is not going to pay, but you know it also cannot be the patient's responsibility because you are in network with that insurance company and have agreed to their allowed amounts. So for some of those items, if it's years old, this may be an option that you have to take. Again, it's always up to you how to deal with these transactions in your ledger. But I'm just trying to show you the ways in which the tools that we have that you can use. So for those things, you could use a new negative adjustment, put in the amount that you are adjusting or writing off, and then of course make your type and make your comment to explain why this amount is being written off the ledger. Moving forward after cleaning up a messy or lengthy ledger, I really recommend using new incidents. and archiving old incidents once they're completed. Once again, a completed incident means incidents that no longer have a balance and no longer have any open claims. Once that's the case, you can archive the selected incident. When the patient comes in for a new visit or a new problem, or if it's a new year, um, I would say the next time a patient comes in, if you have this situation with a messy ledger and with cleanup, I would make a new incident for your patient. Creating a new incident will give you a fresh ledger to start over with from all of that old work. The two biggest recommendations I have for people who are struggling with sending old claims or cleaning up a ledger, two pieces of advice. Do today's work first is the number one thing. You don't want to get further behind in posting your charges or your payments because you're trying to work on closing claims from 2013. It's just not worth it. So go ahead and make sure you're posting and doing all of today's work first before you work backwards to try and do that cleanup. The second piece of advice I have is newest to oldest. So just like we talked about when we were looking at the outstanding claims manager, always work on the most recent items first and move back into the past as you do your cleanup.